All right, rookies, take your seats. Welcome to the interstellar wilderness known as Starminer. I know you're all eager to start building up your own fleet and searching the solar system for valuable materials. Some of you might even make a profit. Most of you will not. My name is Charlie, and Paradox Arc has sponsored my trip out here to provide you with the necessary training in designing and building your own ships and stations. And with this fundamental knowledge presented today, I'm sure you'll be well on your way to getting that profit that you seek. To start your initiation in building, let's establish a few things first. This course assumes that you've undergone your orientation on ship navigation and movement already, so I'll be assuming that you are familiar with the controls of your ship, and I won't be going too much into those things here today. Secondly, while we will cover some basics on identifying the types and quantities of materials that you'll need for construction, obtaining such materials in the first place is a topic that requires its own course. I'm told there will be some other instructors providing that knowledge to you in future sessions, so you might want to get tuned to the Paradox social channels so that you are informed and can sign up for those training sessions when they are available. Now let's get to it. Right from the beginning, there are several variations of starter ships to choose from, and depending on your desired career here, you may find advantages to choosing one class or ship over another. Today, we're going to be showing you a couple of different ships, starting with the Prospector. Ain't she a beaut? I'm kidding, of course, she's not that impressive. Now, the purpose of the Prospector is, as you may have guessed by the name, to get a good start in mining and gathering resources that you will need to start off in your career. Life in the Prospector is tough, make no mistake, but it is rewarding if you stick with it. It features a T2 Hulk node at its core, a scanning module for knowing what you're about to cut into, and a Tier 2 mining laser to make sure you can get that job done, a variety of solar panels to keep the lights on, as well as a thermal dump mounted at the rear for getting rid of all the excess heat. There's also a few hangars around here for your engineers to fly in and out of. Now, the reason I'm giving you this quick tour of the Prospector is because this is the standard starter vessel that many of you will choose to start with, and I'm hoping that that gets you thinking about the fact that there are different types and sizes of modules that will all have different purposes. However, for a portion of this demonstration, you will see me use another ship, a commander. I'm told by upper management that this ship can be described as a sandbox easy mode ship, whatever that means. I don't speak suit. Now, to begin, assuming you have the resources to do it, you will first select an available attachment point on your ship. This will bring up options for you in relation to the size of the attachment point that you've selected. T1 or Tier 1 modules will go on T1 attachment points. Tier 2 will go on Tier 2 attachment points, and so on and so forth. In the beginning, you have basically nothing you can build. Like the good old explorers of yesteryear, you're going to have to earn your place among the stars. And if you want more parts to be available to you, well, you'll be happy to know that capitalism is alive and well out here in the Expanse, and you may purchase licenses to parts that you want to construct. Assuming you've got the credits, take a look at your operations interface, and you can bring up that a la carte space engineering toy store known as the research screen. Wait, huh? Oh, that's strange. Your screen looks different than mine. You must have not gotten that over-the-air update yet way out here. Well, don't worry. We'll get that taken care of, and we'll fix it all up for you by the time you get your own ship, okay? Now, in the meantime, I'd like to direct your attention to the fact that there are two different numbers here on the various part licenses. Now, some of these parts are well established, and we can just outright buy them. Just take the license. Other parts are a bit more tricky. We only have a portion of the final design that we're able to license. The rest of the solution, you're going to need to come up with on your own, which means putting in the research time for them. And that means getting your own nerds in a mobile research lab, which just so happens to also be available to license on this screen. Now, if you are going out into the Expanse without any money, I question your life decisions personally, but in that case, you should be able to sell materials that you scrap for some credits to help in getting those licenses. And of course, if you happen to be coming from privilege, well, congratulations and happy days. You're already ahead of us with a big advantage. Good for you. Thanks, Dad. For this training session, I have been authorized to unlock everything you see on this screen so that we can use these designs in the training simulations today. I will proceed from this point on with all of these options unlocked. However, I would also like to point out before we go that there is an upgrades tab here as well, which makes a portion of the items we'll be looking at even better than their original versions. It is up to you how you decide to spend that research time. Okay, so with everything unlocked, we have loads more options to choose from in expanding our little Prospector. Obviously, your purpose will vary, but mine is to train you rookies how it all works so that you don't accidentally vent yourself out an airlock while trying to cut and paste something where it doesn't belong. So, let's start simple. Another T2 Hulk node. Now, as I hover over this option, you can see a description of the part, and below that are some resource icons showing what materials are required in order to build it. In this case, the T2 Hulk node requires 50 iron, 80 silicates, 10 cobalt, and 800 energy. Now, I don't pretend to assume you've all read your required training manuals provided, so let me just summarize by showing you that the components have some built-in energy storage, and the ship also has extra energy storage standing by, or at least this one does. That energy needs to be put into the module you are building in order to complete the construction. In this case, 800 energy. So when I confirm this construction, the engineers we have in our crew will go ahead and begin putting in the initial labor to construct this extension to our vessel, and that includes bringing out the materials I mentioned earlier. The ship is also providing the required energy to the part constructed, because the ship is connected to this construction. If you do not have the energy available to give, then the construction will slow or may even halt entirely until you do have the requirements met. While they are assembling this component, we could continue placing more modules on the ship, and the engineers will proceed to build those as well. But I'm going to go ahead and fast forward into the simulation here so that we can see things more clearly on a completed Tier 2 Hulk node. Alright, so this is what the completed module looks like, and the variable sized attachment points that come with it. Of course, to get the materials to keep building, you're going to need to scrap derelicts and space junk from the other poor saps that didn't properly pay attention to this training in order to get the required materials for yourself. But as soon as you get yourself in a groove with that bit, maybe even get yourself a little bit of money, you can build this out much bigger, like adding another mining laser to cut stuff down more quickly, adding additional solar panels to help power it, adding additional hangars to get more engineer ships for better logistics. I also highly recommend building that research module we spoke about before when you get the chance, so that you can begin learning about more advanced equipment. Some modules, like those additional hangars, will also require an extra build within them to become functional, such as choosing to build either a hauler or a constructor within it. Probably the most important module that you'll add to your ship, though, at the start of your career, is the T1 refinery. Now, this little thing doesn't work very fast compared to its bigger brothers, but it performs a critical function, allowing you to take raw materials and process them into workable ones. I'm sure your mining instructor later will have much more to say on that. The reason I bring it up is that it's a funny shape. It takes up more than just one attachment point worth of space. Some modules will do that, so previewing the size of modules and planning ahead is a good idea. We've also got a sweet button right here on the side of the module selection in case you want to rotate something before you place it. You also need to be aware of engineer pathing out of those hangars too, because they aren't going to want to just fly out of the ramp and run into another module. So sometimes you won't be able to place something where you want if it's too close to something else. But if rotating a piece doesn't solve your problem and there's no other way around it, sometimes you just gotta scrap things. You can click any external module and you'll have the option to sell that part, or you can scrap it for a little bit of extra resources. You can also quickly get this with Control D. With the part out of the way, you would then have enough slots for something like this refinery. Any questions? No? Well, if there is, leave them in the comments after class. Moving on. Building onto your existing ship is not your only option. Having a fleet requires real entrepreneurial spirit, and having multiple ships or stations is a real game changer. If you're running out of space on your starter ship, I've got good news. There's plenty of space in space. If you don't have any available attachment points left, or you just want to build a separate station in space, you can use the build point tool to create an initial attachment point in space to begin construction. You can move this point along the X, Y, and Z axis like this. And when you are ready to begin, just click the node and select the first module like this. Now all your constructors in the area, on more than one vessel if applicable, will work on this construction as well using the resources that they have on board. You may notice though after a while that while the materials do get delivered to this Hulk node to be built, it isn't finishing. This would be a great time to talk about troubleshooting constructions that don't seem to be progressing. If you begin building something and for whatever reason it is not completing, the first thing you should do is click on that part and view the build requirements window on the left. This window will show you what has and hasn't been delivered. Most likely, you have a resource that hasn't been delivered all the way, likely because you don't have any of that resource left in range. You'll either need to collect more of it, or refine more raw resources to get it. It is possible, though, that you're not missing a resource to deliver, but instead lack the energy for it. Remember our first Hulk node constructed because it was attached to a ship that already had power. This time, though, the new station is not connected to anything. You have two options to avoid this problem. The first, which is much more likely for you in the early days, is to simply build the module the same as we did before, while it's attached to the existing ship. Then, you'll want to build a solar module on that new vessel part as well, so that it has a source for power on its own when we detach it. Next, we're going to click on the module settings and navigate to the Upgrades tab to install retro thrusters. This gives the new Hulk node its own thrusters to maneuver with. We will need to wait for the module to be fully built and then fully charged with power so that it has the energy to engage separation from the main ship. Finally, when those retro thrusters are full of juice, select the part again, and this time we're choosing Detach. If you cannot click this button, you likely missed a step. With it detached from the main ship with its own propulsion and power generation, it is effectively its own independent vessel, and you can now do with it as you please. The second way to fix this problem is the better way, as long as you've researched it, and that is the T2 construction tower. The Tier 2 construction tower can be built on a vessel that has its own adequate power source, and as long as it's in the area, the tower not only delivers the resources to pending construction in its line of sight, but it can also send energy remotely as well, taking it from the ship that it's installed on and sending it to the constructed part. In order to install one of these units, you'll first need a few hundred research points, and then grab the license from the fleet section in the research panel. As you can see with this puppy in action, anything you can build, you can now build fast and flexibly from anywhere. Just be mindful now, though, that you're dealing with multiple ships. Constructions are not simply blueprints. They are already physical objects in space that other ships can absolutely run into, and it is very easy to damage your equipment in space. I highly recommend aiming beside the stuff that you want to fly towards and not directly at your target. It is sometimes hard to tell how fast you're going in space, and it will almost always take you longer to slow down than you think. Just like we can detach modules, as shown before, we can also merge them. The T2 attachment nodes also serve as docking ports that each ship as a standard can interface with. As long as you have two available ports with no physical obstructions preventing two crafts from coming together, we can use this standard to add onto our ship as well. So for example, I have this slightly different craft here, which has wandered over and found this perfectly fine piece of hardware abandoned in space. It's got some really useful T2 solar panels on board, and I'd like to have those added to my ship. If I maneuver one of my free ports close enough to the other port, I'll be prompted to merge these two ships together. So I'll get my orientation right so that I make sure everything lines up the way I want, and boom, we are docked. Now initially, this ship's section is not really a merged part of my controllable vessel. I'm simply lugging it around, which is useful for taking it over someplace else. If I want to merge this part with another ship instead, I would click this button to unmerge these two pieces. But if I do want this full segment to be part of my controllable ship, I will simply initiate that here. And now I have full control over this as one unified craft. We can obviously do this with anything that we build in open space as well. Now that, ladies and gentlemen, is a way to expand your ship and also to build in the middle of space anywhere you want. But that is not all. There is still one more way to build in Starminer: building on asteroids. You see, some asteroids are massive, and it would require you to sit there twiddling your thumbs all day to take any meaningful portion of sweet riches they provide. However, with enough research points, you can unlock the Mount and Drill module. And once you've got that, you can double-click any asteroid to enter build mode from it. Now, just click where you want this node to be, and then click that Tier 2 Mount and Drill node from the list. Assuming you have the construction tools and resources nearby, you'll begin to construct it right away. So what do you suppose is so special about being able to do this? Well, as you can probably guess already, you can set this up to extract resources while you're away. As long as you have adequate power, storage, and habitats for the people working there, You can set it up, go about your business with your main ship, and then come back and collect the riches later. But even cooler than that is that you can now combine this module with some attached thruster modules. And by doing this, you'll be able to move the asteroid someplace else. So if you've found an asteroid that's made of a rarer resource and you'd like to get a steady supply of it, you may choose to pop some thrusters on that bad boy and physically move the asteroid closer to where your refinery is. That's pretty useful. As was this video, I hope, teaching you how to build in Starminer. I do hope this training course has brought you some clarity on the mission and how you'll execute your plans for greatness in the incredibly dangerous, rocky arenas of the solar system. If you have any questions, please feel free to fill out a comment form down below that beautiful like button you clicked earlier. And also keep yourself tuned into all of Paradox's socials so that you know when your next instructor is arriving for the mining and refining training course early next month. If you want to give my content a shot, there's over 3,700 videos on this channel, one of which I'm sure is just right for you. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Have a great day. Goodbye.